Hello, my name's Amanda Foxen-Hill and this is Suddenly Autistic, my YouTube channel, blog, vlog, whatever you call it, where I'm talking about my life as somebody who was diagnosed with as autistic at the age of 46, and I'm now 48. So I don't want to go on about that because you might have already watched videos before, but basically that's me. I'm somebody who's autistic. I have other bits and pieces going on too, but I'm making videos on here for me so that I know what's going on, and also for other people who might find them interesting. And today I'm doing this super quick, without a lot of editing, etc., because I was watching some content this morning from another creator of content on YouTube, and it struck a massive chord with me and I wanted to share it. And it's around viewers, figures, and monetizing content. So let's get into that, and I'll share what I've been thinking. So I consume a lot of content online, and sometimes I feel really bad about that. Not because of the time it takes. I consume good content and it's a great use of my time. Thanks, everybody. More about the fact that I can't pay everybody. I can't pay everybody. You know, I'm getting help from therapists online, as in watching their videos. I'm not ringing them personally, but do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of life skills content, there's a lot of science stuff, there's what else do I watch? Anything and everything, really, whether it's whatever. There's all good content online. People invest a lot of their lives to create content, and I appreciate it greatly in many of its forms, although I must say not all content is great quality. But there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I do have a range of people who I regularly dip into, look at the content, and wish that I could, give them a big hug and say thank you very much. In fact, I wouldn't hug them because I don't really like hugging them. I don't even know why I said that. Just goes to show what happens when you start talking into a camera. Anyway, I appreciate them. I create content too. And I have been creating content on and sharing it online for a long time, mostly under my business, which is my cosmetics chemistry business and my consultancy. And I was creating mostly written content in the form of a blog. And I've done that I did that pretty regularly for 10, 12, 13 or 14 years. And in the last couple of years, it's dropped off quite a lot because of my mental health, things that are going on outside in the real world, and a whole other raft of things, but it's sort of fallen on down a little bit. And that's kind of related to this. Now, I want to bring it straight round to what I was watching this morning, and then sort of go backwards from there, and then sort of wrap it up if I can keep that thread going. So this morning, one of the people that I follow, who's a counsellor, and when I say follow, I don't follow them around, whatever. I dip in and out of their content and quite regularly see things they post, but not all the time. Anyway, now that's cleared up. There was a video on there this morning, and she was looking very emotional. I watched the video content, and it was about how this person had announced that they needed a break before, and I had seen that content and had expected them to be away for some time. I hadn't really worked out how long. I don't know whether they told us, but anyway, they were having a break from social media because they felt drained and not themselves and not great, and they had now announced that they had taken their break, they were back, and they were still feeling drained and a bit worn down, but they were doing the best they can. In this video, and I think that, that's fine, full kudos to them for being so honest, and I do appreciate the honesty. But in the explanation of why they were having to come back, why they are online again after this relatively short break, when they were acknowledging that they actually needed longer, it was because of the money. This person did articulate that they gain a lot of income, or they rely on, I should say, the income that comes from their YouTube channel through advertising, and that advertising is churned to them because of an algorithm. And if they create good content, if they create regular content, it wins the algorithm. If the content's good and popular, it boosts them up. The more popular and more content they have, the more the algorithm is fed, the more money they get. So it's a simple maths game, really. That's the equation for you. They were saying this at the same time as looking to me very emotional, and bearing in mind I'm autistic, my emotional radar's not always correct. I do pick up on the visual signs of emotion in others, but not necessarily then translate them back to the origin that's important to that person at that time. So they looked distressed. The words they were saying were fairly like acknowledging that they needed more time out. And they were also saying that this algorithm was keeping them in the game because they've got staff to pay. And if they don't create content, they don't have much income for their, well, they have less income for their business, then they can't pay their staff. This is a real world problem. This is a real business problem. So clearly they're having to create some content. But what happened to me in that moment when I'm listening to these words is I go, oh my God, the modern world, this is a modern slavery. We talk about modern slavery in terms of, those delivery drivers for food where they're not paid enough and it's, not secure work. Well, this is the other thing. We are working, content creators are working for an algorithm, not a person, not their own boss. You're not creating your own opportunities. It's an algorithm that's the boss. And that worried me. It worried me for this individual person because this person does put a lot of time and effort into their content. Their content's pretty good most of the time. I do enjoy it. Sometimes it's not as relevant, but it's great. They're very regular. And it triggered me, which is a word that has meaning, and I am meaning it in the way that it triggered a deep reaction and a sadness and almost a sort of shutdown reaction in me to hear them say that they are having to do this for the algorithm and whatnot. Because in that moment I realized that I can't access income like that. Now, what I mean about that is I have, as I said, I've created content for sharing online for years. I have never monetized that content. That has always been something that I have decided that I would invest in and put it out there and take the money that comes from people booking me offline and using me in the real world as a consultant. And by and large, it has worked quite well. And the time that I spend creating content for online, the amount of times I share, how many people eyeball that content is about different things. It's really within my control. So I think I've basically established myself in my business well enough now that I don't have to create content for the algorithm, if you like. Now, this became very, very relevant to me not long ago because, as I said, I was able, and it was a natural flow, I was able and motivated and willing to create content regularly and share it on my blog, and that was creating a blog that was very popular, lots of people coming, even people, or specifically a lot of people from within my industry that I know are very intelligent and qualified, so it was giving me great feedback really in terms of peer review that what I was doing was fairly good quality also, that I was a legitimate expert in this area, and that people were right to book me because I am grounded in reality here. Now, that's not inconsequential for me because as somebody who's autistic, I don't always I'm used to feeling like an outsider or other and being on a different page. So sometimes I can even feel like my perception of my capacity and my even my reality, if you like, outside of my perception, the verifiable, I have a feeling sometimes that it's not seen or appreciated by other people, or it's not real. So anyway, long story short, I've been there and done that, created content online and been somewhat invested in that, generating numbers, although not income. The income came offline, but the numbers created the views that then turned into customers. Numbers game. But that all crumbled for me because of my mental health, and basically that is the bottom line. My mental health. I started to find myself sitting here to write a blog and having ideas and couldn't get through it, couldn't complete it, couldn't make sense of it. Nothing was coming together. I didn't seem to have the skill for it anymore, and then I stopped having the desire for it. It was causing anxiety, not for any other reason that I started to feel like, why am I even doing this? I don't want to share my ideas with these people anymore. Not all of them, not for any reason personally, but there was a couple of bits of the game, if you like, of creating content and putting it online that I just had changed since I started, and I wasn't enjoying. It wasn't serving me, and every time I went there, it was starting to create a trauma response. It did upset me that my blog was starting to lose views because I wasn't posting as much. I felt that was a little bit unfair at the beginning, but it didn't take me long before I realized that I didn't need that in terms of my sense of self. It wasn't the validation that I thought it was to get lots of people reading this stuff. It is definitely nice, and it does give validation to the fact that what I'm doing is valued by other people and it's helping other people, because clearly they're spending the time reading it and interacting. But it wasn't necessary. It didn't mean that I wasn't good unless I kept doing it. So I took a break, and I needed that break, and I'm still on that break. And my blog figures have gone right down, and I don't mind. It doesn't matter. The numbers became vanity rather than necessity or value. Back to the situation I saw this morning, and I'm seeing somebody who's got a very real dilemma on their hands. They need a break. They are the channel, they are the content producer, they are the business, they're the face of it, the essence of it, they're the product. The product of this person is being managed by a boss that's an algorithm, and algorithms don't care. They don't have feelings. They're math. It's a mathematical equation. And in terms of don't have feelings, that's not entirely true. Whatever is going into that algorithm is the parameter. The parameters could be learned and understood, but they're not going to. They're going to be the same all the time. So the parameters are the parameters. I know, as somebody who is autistic and who's trying to resolve some trauma and complex PTSD and anxiety disorder, that even without those illnesses, I have lumpy capacity. I can be really good and productive sometimes and terribly unable to do anything another. It's like the capacity in my brain is, it's not always available to me, and sometimes it's not available in the right way or to the right strengths or whatever. So actually what I'm trying to say here is creating content to please an algorithm that requires you to be consistent and regular and, you know, witty and whatever, all the things that tick the internet boxes that make things popular, I can't access. I can only be myself. I can only be myself in the moment. Sometimes I can't even be. I can't do it. And sometimes I will do lots of things at the same time. So I might find it easy to produce 10 videos one week and then no videos for 5 months. That doesn't feed algorithms. Algorithms die. Or actually, they don't die. The algorithm carries on, you die. So I can't access this magical world that this other person is a slave to. So I'm in that moment, I'm feeling very sad about the situation I'm hearing for this other person. I'm also feeling a lot of empathy for them. You know, I understand. I've been there. I get it. I feel that this is, you know, this is horrible. This must be horrible for you. This must be hard. I really hope they find a solution that works for them. I've been there myself, but like I said, I knew in myself that I couldn't be a slave to this algorithm thing, so I didn't access the money. So I've been in a position where I have created content, blood, sweat, and tears content, put it out there, and not got any financial reward for it. So it wasn't that I was, and I mean, that was when I was being, you know, predictable, I guess, or had the capacity. And the reason I didn't is because I knew this about myself, and I thought, well, I can't run a business like that. And there was other reasons too, but that algorithm fed advertising revenue was not available to me then. It's not available to me now. Why I wanted to share this is because it's a seductive beast. Being able to do what you do, you're doing it anyway, you're creating content anyway. How easy would it be just to flick these boxes and then bam, it's monetized? Yes, it is easy to do that, but then something happens, and you start to become a slave to this algorithm. I don't feel it's inevitable. I just feel it's something we have to be aware of, especially if you're creating content and you have mental illness or a history of mental illness, and are likely to experience more in the future or episodes in the future, especially if you're neurodiverse. There's a lot of neurodiverse people creating content out there. You know, when things are going easy, you might be on a roll. There's a lot of people who are neurodiverse creating content about parenting, and their children are young. Now, I don't know whether this is going to be the same for everyone. I hope not, and I assume not. But kids go through a thing called adolescence and early adulthood and growing up, and that can change your perception of how you parented the whole way through. So I think there's a lot of little like things that are likely to come up. And in terms of the algorithm and the making money, you know, like I said, these things are easy. It's easy to access that algorithm money when you're in control of your capacity, of your family unit, of your passion, your content. But your control won't always be there because we're human. We live in a changeable world. The more personal your content is, the more enmeshed in your own sense of identity your successes, the more it will hurt when those things don't go well. And like I said, for me, it wasn't so much this enmeshment about my ego or my sense of self. I didn't really think that was a big part of it, but it did affect me in other ways because it started to feel like I had polluted by sharing and then not sharing and not being able to do it, and people commenting saying, I don't so much like it when you publish all this in one go, and then why didn't you put anything. It really sort of made me feel quite sad about the whole thing, rather than thinking, wow, I'm doing really well with the tools that I've got. I've showed up consistently, or I've showed up for such a long time, or I answer, focusing on what I can do rather than what I can't. An algorithm will never give you that grace. An algorithm is a blunt tool in a chaotic world. And that's all I wanted to say.